always say making income and impact while striving satisfied. It's really important not to let your business own you, but rather you own your business. Specifically, the thoughts that you think show that you truly believe in what you're saying. At 23 years old, I grew a multiple six-figure fitness company. I was going on trips. I had all the clients. Externally, everything was perfect for years. But what wasn't perfect was internally, because my thoughts over and over were telling me, Arden, you're not good enough. You're not going to reach this goal. That was a big eye-opener for me as well, where I was like, I don't want to work more anymore. I don't want to keep working like this. I want to figure out how I can own my life. I could literally run two extremely successful companies and live my life. And it came from me recognizing that, okay, it's not about doing more. So if you're kind of here and you're doing the three things that I just said not to do, here are the three things to do.
Hey, Arden. Welcome to the Top Hūman Podcast.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
I'm going to pull up my notes here on your intro. I'm going to read off a couple things just to introduce you to the audience. So Arden is a business coach, but you also started off as a personal fitness coach, right?
Yeah.
And one thing I've liked about what I've seen from your content and just engaging with you is you're not a fan of like all of the busy work. And so you have this lifestyle that you've built around your business that really is not sleazy, not salesy. It gives you the success that you're looking for, and it also drives the lifestyle that you want, which includes traveling and just living life on your own terms, which is, I think, part of what life's all about. And in addition to that, you're not sacrificing like your stress, your anxiety, your mental health, right? You really are taking care of yourself along the way, and you have the success in addition to that, which a lot of people sacrifice. So I think you're just a dope human, definitely a good example of a top human, and wanted to see if there's anything I missed in your intro that you think is key to your story.
No, that was pretty much it. I always say making income and impact while striving satisfied. And, it's really important not to let your business own you, but rather you own your business. And I've definitely been in a place where my business owned me, and that's why I really made this shift, and I really like to share it, that I embody now, that I don't let my business own me anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
And that kind of rolls into my first question for you too, which is, and you use that word embody, like you really embody what you preach, what you teach your clients. How long did it kind of take you to find that and to find who you are and finding your style? Like, tell me more about that kind of story there.
I love this question. Well, to start, I think embodiment, what even is that, right?
That's a great point.
Being able to embody what you preach means that your actions and the things that you do and the thoughts that you think, which I don't think many people really relate this to embodiment, but specifically the thoughts that you think show that you truly believe in what you're saying. And I know that for me, throughout this journey, it was really easy to show, okay, I had the money. Okay, I had the clients. Okay, I had this successful team and the fitness company and the business. So a little bit about me is I started as at 23 years old, I grew a multiple six-figure fitness company, had no idea that that's what I was doing, but that's what I was doing. And then by 25 and a half, so by December 2021, I realized that I absolutely hated being a CEO. And I learned a lot about myself through that process, and I also had to learn how to be a little bit more financially literate. And so from there, I really did learn how to grow and scale a business model and company that made sense for me and my life, and what I desired as a person. And I don't really like to call my business a lifestyle business, because I genuinely believe it's not a lifestyle business. It's not like I'm half-assing it. No, like I'm 100% all in. And back to the embodiment thing, as I said, it's not just your actions that show that you're embodying what you're preaching and what you're saying. It's also your thoughts. And for a long time, what I learned about myself and how I stepped into it was my actions were clearly showing that I was embodying all the things I was preaching, right? I was going on trips. I had all the clients. Externally, everything was perfect for years. But what wasn't perfect was internally, right? And my
Mm.
thoughts were not actually embodying what I was preaching. So, though I was able to go travel to Germany back in August 2021 for 10 days or 12 days, right? That whole time I was taking sales calls at midnight. I couldn't stop answering my clients during dinner time. Like, I couldn't actually embody the thought or the process that I could actually vacation and travel without needing to work or get work done
Gotcha.
first,
Yeah.
but especially in my head. So when we would go out to dinner, I couldn't even sit there and be present and eat all of the food with my friends because I was thinking about my clients, right? I couldn't sleep at night. So I decided to do the sales calls because I was scared we weren't going to hit the amount of money that we wanted to make in August, right? Because
Yeah.
my thoughts over and over were telling me, Arden, you're not good enough. You're not going to reach this goal. Arden, you're busy. You haven't done enough. Arden, right? And so when I started to fully, truly step into embodiment, it started to actually come to a place of shifting my thoughts and not just my actions.
I love that. I really love that. I feel like that's a point that a lot of people just don't get to, or they just ignore,
Mm.
right? Like it's a lot easier it is, I think, to shift your actions than to actually change like the noise inside your head.
Oh, yeah.
Um
Much
but
easier.
yeah, it's critical though, I think, especially as entrepreneurs to where we're ambitious. Anyone who's ambitious, even like high performance athletes, right? Like if you're going for your goals, whatever they are, like we have that voice that says you're not good enough, like you're not going to hit it. And removing that, like that's where I think that's where the work is.
Oh, yeah. And I think that far too often we shove them away or we distract ourselves or we numb. And
Mm,
as entrepreneurs, and that's something I did for a long time until it all hit me at once. And externally, this reflected through my whole fitness company crumbling, right? It was December
wow.
2021 and I was like, screw this. I absolutely hate everything I created. I had this huge awakening. And I was like, I hate my company. I don't care that we're making 50K months. Like, I absolutely hate what I have. And I fired all my assistant coaches except one. And I said, we're rebuilding this thing. And I fired like 30 clients. Like, I hated half of my clients. We had like 200 something clients, and I hated, like, I had fun with the marketing, the Instagram side, but when it came to working with the people, there was a disconnect. And it made sense because the people I was pulling in were through high pressure sales. It was through me like
Right.
always feeling angst and nervous, like, oh my God, I'm not going to sign them. I need to get their credit card by the end of the Zoom call. It was like, it was just so pushy. And then the people joined our world and they sucked. They didn't do their workouts. They didn't want to be a part of the community. And I started to catch on to this. And so in that point in time, the money didn't even matter to me because I was so unhappy with what I had created. And externally it looked beautiful, but internally I didn't love it. And so my mind couldn't even shut off. So it was numbing and it was overworking. I was distracting myself with work. I was, doing all of the things. I had to focus on the external. I would buy myself stuff. I would get my nails
Mm.
done, right?
I
Yeah, all the
see
things.
you love the nail emoji.
Of course.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's amazing awareness, and not just awareness, but like you even took the action to be like, I'm firing all my like it's easier to talk about the actions rather than actually change the mindset. So what was going through your head? You kind of talked about it a little bit, but to actually take that action of like, no, I'm firing all my clients. We're starting this from scratch. what was it that pushed you over that edge to finally take that action shift? And then later I want to talk about the mindset piece, but just from like the action perspective, like what was that straw that broke the camel's back?
Yeah, this is actually such a good question. I don't think I've ever answered this. So the number one reason why I like practically sabotaged the whole business in December 2021 was because what I started noticing was a lot of people started asking me, "Oh my God, Arden, how did you grow your fitness company? You're so successful. You've been, you're 24 years old. You're running this super successful fitness company. What's the secret? What'd you do?"
Yeah.
And of course, my little ego butt was like, "Oh, let me show you." Right. So I actually took on in December, like the beginning of December, I took on like 2 or 3 clients for free to help them. They were
On the
also
business
fitness
side.
coaches. Yeah. So I like
Okay.
almost
Yeah.
started leaning into a little bit of mentorship, which is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And I started taking them on, and I took on three personal training people who were also fitness coaches, and they wanted my help. And I started helping them. And as I was helping them, I couldn't figure out how to help them. And I was like, why don't I know how to help them? And I realized that the whole company that I grew never had a specific strategy, never had a specific step. You know what it was through? It was just through working a ton. And when I say working a ton, I mean, you could ask my
Yeah.
significant other. I destroyed my relationship. This story is so hard to share. I shared this on TikTok a few weeks ago, but in July 2021, it was our highest cash month. It was like a 60K cash month, and it was great. I loved it. It was the best month ever. I
Yeah.
literally don't fucking remember that month at all. I hope it's okay if I curse. I
You're
actually
good.
don't remember it at all. You know why? Because I did over 140 hours of Zoom calls, sales calls in July 2021.
Damn.
I was supposed to go on vacation with my significant other's family. This is actually kind of what like destroyed our relationship, but we're still together. But it was a very hard time. I was supposed to go on a vacation with his family, and I decided, you know what? I don't want to go on vacation. Like, business is doing really well. If we go on vacation, I'm just going to be doing sales calls the whole time. So I skipped the vacation.
Mm.
And just a few months later, my significant other's mom, my to-be mother-in-law, passed away. And that would have been the last moment that I was able to, and it was very sudden. And that would have been the last moment I would have been able to spend with her. And so it was actually, that was a big eye opener for me as well, where I was like, I don't want to work more anymore. I don't want to keep working like this. I want to figure out how I can own my life and I can own my business, because I'm not going to do hundreds of hours of sales calls and like, this just isn't the life for me. This doesn't make me happy, because that vacation was so much more worth it if I had gone
Yeah.
than any freaking sale. And I think far too often, especially as entrepreneurs, we get so obsessed with the services we could provide too. Like, I was in that point of like, I just love how I can help people, right? Which is great. But if you're not helping yourself, you're never going to help anyone else, right? If you're not filling your own cup, it's going to be hard to fill others.
Right.
And so in December, I was taking on some people, and I was like, I don't want to teach them how I ran my company. I like started realizing it. And so that was what really woke me up. I was like, holy crap. Like, if people are asking me how I ran my fitness company, I don't want to teach them this way, because I don't like how I run my fitness company. I don't like how I grew it. I don't like, right. So I restarted it all by like mid-December. It was like right around Christmas time. Pretty much like crumbled it all, restarted it all. And I think December was like maybe like a 5K month, maybe 6K. Like, and prior to that, I mean, we were hitting 30, 40K months. And then I just like, I fired everyone. I fired all my clients. Like, and then I realized like December was horrible. Oh my God. So I was like, okay, I actually have to regrow this company. And by April 2022, the fitness company was back to making 30K, it was like a 23K month. And then for the rest of 2022, we were making decently like 25K, 30K months. Up until about the last 3 months of the year, I decided I didn't want to continue to run it, because I had started business coaching in April of 2022. Like, I did a hard launch. I started charging people. And that actually, I was kind of like one foot in each company for a while, for like the whole year of 2022, and it just got to be like too much because I didn't think business would grow as fast as it did, but it did, which was great. But I was then not only able to rebuild the fitness company in our second year to make like over 250,000, but I also made over 150,000 in business coaching. So that was in 2022. So it was like a really big year, and I didn't expect both companies to like, but that was like almost like the thing I needed was I could literally run two extremely successful companies and live my life. And it came from me recognizing that, okay, it's not about doing more. It's not about putting in more work. It's not about distracting myself with work. It's literally about my thought process. It's literally about how I show up, and it's literally about working smarter. And also, like, I'm not going to sit here and say business isn't hard, right? You have to be all in. But it wasn't about just doing all of that busy work or growing my company like I did the first time. Now I was able to grow my company and my business coaching company with like in half the amount of time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
It's really good. I totally agree on the lifestyle piece of, it's some things are worth it, some things are not worth it. My dad was diagnosed with brain cancer like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I was already working remote, and I was able to like spend 4 months at home and like help take care of him during that time because I chose like this lifestyle balance, right? It wasn't a lifestyle business. I was actually still a W-2 employee, but just having that conscious choice of like, I don't need to stay in Silicon Valley and like work for all the biggest companies and like get all the biggest stock. I can have this lifestyle and, make enough money and like spend time with who I want to spend it with. And that's important to me.
Yeah.
So I love that. It sucks to have it, I guess, hit you kind of in the way that you experienced it. That must have been really hard.
I'm glad it did. It really supported me through understanding my clients too, because a lot of my clients are the old version of me, the person who thinks that you need to DM more people or you need to put in quote unquote more reps, which I don't disagree. Like more reps can sometimes be the answer, but I think it's the type of reps that you're doing, right? It's not about doing, I think if you go into a gym, right? And you do bicep curls and you're doing like these tiny little weird reps or like you're curling it with your right? Like obviously if you're doing it like that, you're not going to grow your biceps. So you can do hundreds of reps, but like your biceps aren't going to grow. But if you do 3 sets of 60, let's say, and you're doing those really like 3 sets of 60, that's also probably way too many reps to actually build muscle, right? Because with building muscle, you need rest and recovery. But let's say you go and you do 3 sets of 15, right? Now you're doing, instead of 3 sets of 60, you're doing the right amount that's going to actually grow the muscle because you're actually being strategic. And then you go and you get 8 hours of sleep, and then you make sure that you're eating protein, right? All these things make those 3 sets of 15 reps smarter, not more, not harder, not ineffective, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I always like say to my clients is like a lot of times I work with people who they don't actually know the foundational steps that you need to take to grow a business. They just think that you got to talk to as many people as possible. It's not always it.
Yeah. And as we were talking about before, some people are still teaching, go talk to as many people as possible.
And that's why I became a business coach.
Yeah. I love your content. Like it really is different. And so I'd love to dive into that a little bit. Let's like bust, like, what do you think like the top 3 myths are, about like having to work too much? And then I love what you just said. It's not the reps you put in, but the type of reps that you put in, right? Like it's not the content you create, but the type of content you create. And that's something you talk a lot about in your content as well, which I love. It's very unique. So yeah, what do you think are some of the top things that is like the common knowledge that's out there, but actually if you did it a little bit differently, that would take you to the next level?
Yeah, the first thing is DMing as many people as possible. Like I think a lot of business coaches tell you to DM all your Facebook friends, DM all your Instagram followers, and just have a conversation with them and try to get them to buy into your services. I think that's the number one worst thing you should ever do. Like do not DM all your Instagram friends and all your No, don't DM them. Do you want me to elaborate on what they should do instead, or you want me to tell you now the second myth?
let's just go off what the other myths are. Yeah.
Okay, the other one. So the first one is DMing as many people as possible. There's
Yeah.
so many, bro. Okay, the
Yeah.
second one.
I love this anti-advice. Like my philosophy is like if everyone's doing it, there's probably another way that's like the opposite. That's probably better.
Yeah.
And I've
Uh,
experienced that several times in my life.
yeah, right. The second one is leaving long, valuable comments on influencers' posts to like get your account to be seen. No, don't do that. That's such a waste of time. And then the third one is posting 3 times a day. I can name
Okay.
like 47 more, but we're just going to stick with those 3. Posting.
Yeah.
Don't do those.
One thing I think you do really well, which might be one of the things to at least do differently, is you're just yourself. And your personality comes across so well, even in just like your static image posts too. Like you do such a good job. It's like, how can I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like that, I would think that's one of the things to do differently. But
Yeah.
any tips or advice on someone who's like, well, how do I even do that? And like, what if they think this? And like, what if you don't know who you are?
Ooh, okay. So if you're kind of here and you're doing the 3 things that I just said not to do, here are the 3 things to do. The first thing is really lean into marketing. And I think this is kind of where your question comes into play. The best way to market is to market as yourself and do that unapologetically. And I think that people always ask, they're like, what does that mean? How do you unapologetically market as yourself? Like, what is that? Right.
Yeah.
It means being able to be so damn opinionated in what you believe in. I mean, like 10 out of 10 belief that nobody can change your mind. You don't see an Instagram post and it changes. No, like I know if someone told me to go DM 7,000 people right now, I would literally laugh in their face because I know that doesn't work. That does not work. Like I am 10 out of 10 belief that DMing more people will never ever work. Okay. Because I'm so strong in believing that, when I create a post, it's very potent in what I do believe. And I also am very strong in what I do believe, right? Now, here's the thing, right? There's always going to be a gray area. But when it comes to marketing and being your unapologetic self, you need to choose your black and white. I genuinely believe that you need to choose your black and white.
Yeah.
I can sit here and say I don't actually believe at all in DMing a million people a day, but do I believe in prospecting? Yes. But I'm not going to always sit here, and I think it is a case-by-case basis, right? But I'm not going to sit here and be like, I do believe in prospecting, but I also believe in not prospect. No, that's not No, my posts are like, what do I truly believe in? I believe in your marketing skills, and this is the number one thing, right? Is prospecting going to enhance and help? Absolutely. But I'm so certain that your marketing skills is what is going to drive sales, period. Like, I don't need to add anything else in. And so when it comes to learning how to market and create content by being yourself, it's like you first have to know what you believe in. You first have to have certainty. I literally have a post coming on this, by the way. You have to have certainty. And when you have that too, and this, my post today, it's coming this evening, is literally on like business coaches or other coaches who trigger you. Right? A lot of times the reason why they trigger you, or the reason why you start to question yourself when you see what other people say, is because you're not actually certain with what you truly believe in. So if you're ever questioning yourself, or if you're starting to feel triggered by another coach, or like you talk trash on them, or they make you like second guess, right? All of those things are showing that you're not fully authentically yourself. Right? So when you start to second guess, when you start to self-doubt, when you start to feel imposter syndrome, that all comes from you not having quite yet that full belief in what you truly should be believing in. And so that's the first thing. And I'd say the coaches who are the most successful coaches in the world are the ones that literally have unapologetic belief in whatever they believe in. Like they are so damn certain. And when someone is so certain, so direct, so potent around what they believe in, what does that create? A ton of followers, a ton of people who also like want to, like, raving fans, right? I think about it this way. This is, have you ever read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Oh my gosh, you got to
Yeah.
reread it. Just trust me, you're gonna be like, thank you for reminding. Like, so I just reread it because, like, why not? I was on the airplane,
Yeah.
and I reread it, and he said something about, I think it was like Al Capone or whatever, whoever's like one of those really bad guys, whatever. And they never, like, all of the like worst murderers in the US or whatever have always had this crazy belief that they weren't bad people. Like, and it was so strong that even when they like went to jail, like they couldn't understand why they went to jail, but that's exactly what allowed them to kill people. Because they never actually believed, like they so strongly believed that they were good people and they never thought they were bad people. They literally just looked at it and said, oh, I only used this gun to kill people because I was protecting myself, or because they always had a reason that justified so strongly because they believed they were truly a good person. Isn't that crazy?
Right. It's like they believe their own bullshit, but to them it wasn't bullshit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like we're all like, no, you're a bad person, you're killing people, but because they believe that they were literally defending themselves or whatever they told themselves so strongly, right? But that's also why like they got, like, they were so well known, they were so big, they were so, right? It wasn't just about the fact that they were killing people. It was like almost like psychologically, they were so, like, their belief system was so strong in what they believed in that it led them to do those things.
Yeah, that's
It's
I
kind of
kind of
like
remember that.
Hitler too.
I think Hitler was one of the examples. It's been a
Yep.
long time since I've read the book, but
Mm-hmm.
so I love that you brought that up too. How would you say, like, have you had to work on your belief of like who you are and all these things, or is it like how long have you kind of like been like 100% authentically, unapologetically you? And was there like the work that you had to do to get there?
That's such a good question. I think it only gets stronger. I would say the question of how long have I been my authentic self? I think I've always been my authentic self, but I think there's a specific way that you can promote that better on social media. I think that for a long time, my authentic self always felt confused or questioned who I am because I was consuming a lot, way more.
You questioned yourself.
Yeah, I questioned
Yeah.
myself a lot for a while because I was consuming more than I was like creating and doing the inner work. Just because Bob's favorite color is red doesn't mean yours has to be red too. And once I started like looking at it that way and doing the inner work, right? And like the ways that I would do the inner work, I used to write lists of like why I'm so amazing or what I have to offer or why I'd hire myself. I used to write out my strengths. I think that's really big, is like knowing your strengths and like what you're good at. I also think the other thing, and this is probably the number one thing, it's super underrated, is having a mentor who can pull that out of you. Having someone who can almost like support you through like articulating who you are. Because like having a mentor who can question you and guide you instead of just saying like DM more people, but like question you, and I made a post on this too, right? Who can question you and activate you to find that authentic self and be like, that's a post. Like you're in conversation with them and they're like, that is your belief. Make a post on that. Like when someone can literally show you who you are outside of you seeing, because when you're just in conversation, right? You're almost unaware sometimes when you're in conversation, unless you go back and like replay and like watch the, listen to the podcast, watch the episode again, whatever, or listen to the voice notes that you send your mentor again, which lots of people don't do. I think the best mentors are going to pause you and say, hey, that last message you sent me, there's a one-liner in there that is perfect for a post on Instagram that shows exactly what you believe in and who you are. So I think all of that, having all of those three things really, really supported me. And I think it comes and goes. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm perfect and I believe in myself. Like, there's definitely, I think it's more about the snapback rate. So there's moments, right, where I'll be like, oh my God, am I even supposed to be a business coach? But
we all have it.
Authentic, right? I think that's the most authentic, like true thing you could ever feel, right? Like there's some days that I'm like, oh my God, should I be like a business coach? And then literally 2 hours later, I'm like, oh, duh, right? But prior to that, I would sit there and be like, oh my gosh, should I be a business coach? And it would be like that for weeks. Right. And I'd be like, oh my God. So I think the inner work isn't about specifically like unlearning or forgetting those things that make you question yourself, but it's supposed to make you question yourself so that you can bring yourself more into a deeper, authentic version of yourself. I hope I explained that kind of well.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the
Because if you
moment,
forget stuff, you're going to just push it down farther and it's still going to be there.
right? The moments that you question yourself or the moments that you step out of your authentic self are the moments that you get to put yourself back into embodying your unapologetic, authentic self in just a deeper way. So I would say that how I've been working on it hasn't always been through actionable steps, but recognizing when I'm not embodying my authentic, unapologetic self, when I start to question myself, when I start recognizing those moments and saying, oh my God, who am I? And bringing myself back. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That shift is what has created this deep inner knowing and belief of who I am.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it's like you made me think of like when people give meditation advice, it's like, oh, just focus on your breath. And then once you start wandering, like then you bring it back.
Yes.
Right. Which is really hard for a lot of people. When I coach people on how to meditate, I don't even use that approach because I think that's really, I know like it's really hard for a lot of people to do that. So that if that's how you kind of found yourself, that's amazing.
I think that every time you bring yourself back, it's faster.
Yes.
But also it's deeper. And I think that's how I've done the inner work. Is like every time I bring myself back, there's a new version of me that's just deeper that I'm stepping into.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah.
And so for anyone who's listening, who's like, yeah, like, but how is that going to help me in business? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say kind of back to what we were saying is even right now, you just told me, you were like, I love your content. It's so different, right? It stands out. Why do you think it stands out, right? Well, it stands out because not only am I unapologetically myself, but I articulate and explain things in ways that interest other people. They hear a new voice. They hear a new way of thinking. I provoke thoughts and expand minds in my content. And I think the best, 100%, the best type of coach is going to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so whether you're a fitness coach, whether you're a mindset coach, no matter what kind of coach you are, people want to buy from someone who makes them think and also closes the gap to what their problem is. And a lot of times when you know yourself really well, when you know what you believe in very strongly, when you promote that very clearly in your social media, it's super easy to talk to that ideal person who really wants to potentially buy from you because now you've literally shown them this is the answer. And when you literally just give them the answer and you're certain about it and you have that strong belief and you're unapologetic about it, they're like, duh, I gotta buy.
Yeah. And
so I think that's how it relates to business.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a more concrete example from your story we talked a little bit about. You said last December you raised your prices and it didn't go so well because you felt dysregulated.
Yes. So in December 2022, I raised my prices and yeah, like I did not sign any clients, not many. So I lowered my prices and I actually just now doubled that. And
Yes.
I think, yes. And I think it came from the first time I raised my prices last December. And I don't know where you're going with this, but this is where I'm going with it. The first time I raised my prices last December, in December 2022, that's when I raised them. Nothing changed inwardly. This time I doubled because I'm a totally fucking different person. And I know it. And I can hold them. And I could probably hold triple the amount that I'm charging right now, right? Because I know I've now fully embodied what I'm teaching my clients. And my clients are seeing success like crazy. There's also that side of things, right? And so I think it's like almost even really important when you're so certain with yourself and you're so solid in what you truly believe in, as I said, and you can promote that really well and you have the marketing skills. And this is just one piece of the puzzle of growing a successful business. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, market better and you're going to get clients. No, like, right. But this is one piece of the puzzle. So we talked about 3 myths. This is just one of the non-myths, okay? And when you have that certainty and that belief in yourself and you market really well towards your ideal client through that, and you also embody it inwardly, you will feel more confident to get behind a specific price.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Where I was kind of going with it was just that. It's like the inner game and the outer game are like, they match, right? People say if your like your inner world is a representation, or your outer world is a representation of your inner world, right? So if you think about like your house, okay, if your room's messy, like your mind might be a little messy, probably is, right? And so I think about it from the business perspective. If your business is kind of messy and chaotic, like you're probably kind of messy and chaotic, right? If you don't identify with those higher prices, then you can put them up there, but you might not sign anyone, or you do, and then like they want a refund because you didn't match up for it.
Exactly.
And when we were talking earlier, I think it was in the DMs, you kind of gave like a list of like symptoms, for lack of a better word, like not being able to focus, not giving 100%, but also some physical issues, right? Of like headaches and anxiousness, which can totally happen if we're like overstressed, overworking, which is then causing the dysregulation. But as entrepreneurs, we're taught like push, motivate, keep going, like keep working, DM more people, leave more comments. It's like a downward spiral, really.
It really is. And I just think that far too often we think we need to do more, but really what we need to do is give back to ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the more we need to do. And once you can fill your cup, it's going to be really freaking easy to fill everybody else's.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
So what are some ways that you do that now? Like, how do you fill your cup and keep yourself steady as you go and keep growing?
The ways that I really fill my cup is through, and this is going to look different for everyone, is through actually balancing my masculine and feminine energies in business. And so I'm going to kind of explain what that looks like.
I love that.
So being in a more masculine energy is being able to take the action. This is the doing of business. So things such as having a structure, a routine, waking up at a certain time, checking off the checklist, but also being able to provide like a safe space for me to be able to do all those. So maybe some days I have to go do that in a coffee shop because that allows me to focus better. Sometimes I have to, go record TikToks in my car because my dog's not going to be barking in the background, whatever, right? So like this is going to be your masculine energy, where your feminine is more expressive and receiving and like knowing and trusting, okay, I've done the masculine side of things. I've taken the aligned actions. Now it's time for me to receive, express, flow, trust, surrender to knowing, right? And so when you have a really solid balance in both your masculine and feminine energies in business, what I truly believe in is your masculine, when it feels good and you feel like you've checked off the lists, you get to almost shift into your feminine. And a lot of times, once you can create a healthy masculine, that is when it's going to be actually easier to shift into your feminine and give back to yourself. What I see with a lot of people in business is they don't have a healthy masculine. They have a wounded masculine. And what that means is they don't know how to trust, surrender. They don't feel like any of the actionable things that they do is enough, right? So they feel like they have to keep doing and keep doing and keep doing, and they have to see external results. They don't actually have this inner knowing and trust that they're able to provide this safety and security for themselves. So they can't shift into feminine because all they are is masculine, right?
And wounded.
Yes, they're wounded. So they can't trust, they can't receive, right? They think they need to just keep doing more.
Even from themselves.
Something that yes.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
Yes. And so I think that the way that I really truly get back to myself is I almost do like check-ins with like, okay, have I done the aligned actions that feel good and solid for today that's going to move the needle forward in my business? First, you have to know like what are those things, right? You have to create those. And I teach that in my mastermind. That's like my Grow Without the Grind mastermind is like a really big community of people where we talk and chat on the intentional money-making activities to do in your business to like move the needle forward. So that's like something that I'm really passionate about. Because I think that if you don't even know what the actionable steps are to move the needle forward in your business, well, there's your first mistake, right? And it's not DMing a ton of people. I can tell you that.
Right.
But once you feel confident and you know what you need to do to move the needle forward, that and you feel like you've checked off that list, then you can go into your feminine. I also believe that it can be the other way around, where sometimes when you almost feel like, okay, I know what I need to do, even though I haven't done it yet, I still know that as I go throughout my day, I will get it done. So for example, a lot of times, like when I first started my business, I always felt like I had to wake up and get right to work. But now if my day doesn't start until like 1:00, I'm totally okay with that because I still know I'm going to get it done. And that's the feminine, right? And so I think sometimes too, being in your feminine energy and being able to just trust and know that if it's important to you, you're going to get it done. If you're all in, you're going to complete it, right? That you can then take care of yourself first. So you don't always have to do the aligned actions and then take care of yourself, but you can start to do this thing where, okay, I'm going to take care of myself. And I know that as I'm taking care of myself, the aligned actions are going to be easier. Like I'm going to be able to check off that list. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, for sure. It's like when you're more you, there's less friction. There's a lot less friction in just like getting through the day and getting things done.
I also believe that if you're truly embodying what you're preaching, it should just happen as your day's going on. So for example, I'm traveling to Florida for like next week, in a week for like 10 days. And it's really easy for me to be on vacation and share on my story because for me, what am I embodying? Everything that I preach while I'm on vacation, right? And so it's easy for me to go on my Instagram story and say, hey guys, like I'm here in Florida vacationing, jet skiing, whatever I'm doing, hanging out, getting to see my family, not because I have the money that I've desired to create because I support my clients with doing this, but also because like I'm living my best life, right? Like, so I can go throughout my day in Florida and then, while I'm on a jet ski, boom, I got a post idea, right? While I'm laying on the beach, boom, I get a DM from someone who says, oh my God, I loved your post. I want to work with you, and pays me $10K in full. Now, guess what? I just made a sale while laying on the beach after preaching that I was, jet skiing and having, right? So when you're embodying what you're preaching, it should also be really easy to market.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I'm just curious how, like, where you learned about the masculine and feminine energy stuff, because you don't hear a lot of business people talk about that. And then how you brought it into the business world too, because there's, I think, even less.
Oh my gosh, I could go on for years about masculine and feminine energy.
And just, I'll give one more thing real quick. I've heard from, I think, 3 women in the past month say like they want to be less masculine in themselves, in their life, in their business, and shift more into their feminine. So I think this whole concept is becoming more not popular, but just people are starting to recognize it and see that it matters.
Yeah.
To be balanced.
Yeah. I don't think it's about becoming less masculine. I think that to run an empire, you should be a masculine dominant woman if that's something you desire to do, because it's going to be really hard to run an empire if you can't wake up and book calls and take action and do work. Yeah, right? Like you don't like what I've noticed with a lot of my clients who or just people in my world who are very feminine is like they struggle to book calls. I'm rescheduling with them and it can almost get annoying, right? Because then it's like, okay, well, I guess we'll do this time and we'll do this time. And I don't have an issue with rescheduling, but it almost gets too in flow. Like you still have to have that structure, that routine, that aligned action steps that you need to take every day. So if you want to build an empire, you need to have a core masculine. I truly do believe in that. I also do believe that money is a feminine energy. And so if money is more of like a feminine energy, you need to be in your masculine to be like, well, okay, I'm gonna shift.
Oh, that's interesting.
Money. Oh, I have a whole podcast on this. Money is more feminine when you're taking the aligned actions, but to receive money, you have to be in your feminine because money
Right.
will be masculine, right? Okay. Anyways, back on track with the masculine, feminine. Honestly, I don't know where I really learned it. I guess just over time, being spiritual, talking to other mindset coaches, mentors, having my own mindset mentor. Also through my relationship, right? I've been in a relationship for about 7.5 years. And we have both had to almost shift roles. He's more feminine in his core, and I'm more masculine in my core. And when we first started dating, we've been dating since we were really young. So when we first started dating, I was very masculine and he was very feminine. And now it's definitely been a big shift because I'm like, I don't want to be masculine all the time, right? Like I
Mhm.
want to get off my work day and I want to just flow, and I want him to plan the dates now. Like I don't want to do that anymore. Um yeah, I guess I just really learned it through just over time, and I started to recognize that it's a great way to almost explain how you do everything in your life. So
Mhm.
what I mean by that is just like you might be saying okay, I'm someone who's very structure routine. To me, it almost just gave a label to what I am. Like I'm very masculine because I really like my structure, my routine, my step, 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 step. Versus to be able to step in my feminine, I had to understand what that looked like. More expressive, more flowy, more, so once I started understanding that I needed to stop being so structured and routine and just trust and surrender and be okay without being like that. I started to the feminine energy is really what I started to I think it's just a label of being able to heal
Mhm.
that side of myself. Does that make sense? Those things.
Yeah.
So I think that's where that came from. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's so like all the advice, a lot of the advice you hear like in mainstream media for business is very masculine. Like you're
Yeah.
saying, I'm just like push, like do more, just like get up at 4 a.m. and late nights and early mornings and hit the gym and all this stuff. But then you burn out, right? We get overwhelmed, overworked. And from my from my experience, my story, part of it is like I ignored myself. Like I didn't fill my own cup in the ways that I needed to. Like I might have thought I was, but I actually wasn't, and just like ignoring my body. And then my body got wrecked and my mind was wrecked and everything just, it surprised me how much I could keep going
Yeah,
until
now I laugh. I'm like, how did I do all that?
right. Well, so that's one part, right? Looking back. And then one thing that kind of hit me was while I was still all messed up, I was like, okay, I've actually done a lot while I'm in this like dysregulated, distorted state. If I healed myself, just how much farther can I actually go? And
Mhm.
like you don't know until you do it, right? But you can't keep going the way you're going because there's too much friction and dysregulation and all these things, right? It's like, all right, let me start doing the work. And then you get
Yeah.
better and you're like, well, this is going to be way easier now and more authentic. It's going to be more intuitive for you to like make these decisions and just take the action while you're on vacation, right? Or whatever, just in your
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree. And sometimes I think it's this is a combo for another day, but it's definitely I think once you start to become aware of it too, the hardest thing is to unlearn it.
Yeah.
Like you
And
have
you
to
can't unsee it.
yeah, you can't unsee it. You can't for me, it's for a while I was stuck in this belief of, oh my God, if I try to surrender and trust that business is gonna and I have this inner knowing, right? As I was stepping into my feminine energy, I had to surrender and trust that business was gonna be okay if I wasn't DMing a million people a day, right? Like I had to unlearn that strategy of business. I had to say to myself,
Hmm.
DMing a million people isn't going to create the results that you desire, Arden, over and over and over and over. Because there was a piece of me that was so naive to it that I thought that was the only way. And that's how it grew my company the first time. That when I was trying to rebuild my company, I was always like, Arden, don't you dare don't go in DM. Like, look at all these people who aren't DMing a million people and they're seeing success. Like, I had to almost, right? It's the thought process, right? I had to fully stop believing in DMing a million people and start believing that actually wasn't the answer and something else was. So I had to almost fully change beliefs. It's literally going from like, my favorite color is red to my favorite color is blue. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah. And like saying like red is not like, even when you see like red in the corner and you between like a red and a blue shirt, you have to choose the blue. It's almost like you have to pretend for, not even pretend, but like heal this part of you saying like, you don't need that red shirt. You don't need that red. You want the blue shirt. The blue shirt's the answer.
Yeah. And when you were doing that, did you know like what blue was in this case? Like, did you know like, okay, I know DMing is not the thing. Did you know what the thing was? Or did it take like almost blind faith to be like, I'll figure it out?
A little bit of both. I would say
Yeah.
like there's a lot of people that were showing me what blue was, right? So many
Yeah.
people were showing me that I could have this outcome that I desired. I could be making $100,000 months without DMing people. My mentor makes $100,000 cash months. Like, that's cash in our pockets, right? And she told me she's never followed up with a single person. And I just sit there, I'm like, fuck, dude, right? But like, she just
Yeah.
showed me right there, you don't actually need follow-up. And
Yeah, that's
how
crazy.
many mentors have taught you follow up,
The
follow up, right?
fortune's in the follow-up.
Yes, right? Listen, I'm not gonna sit here and say that I agree with that. I actually genuinely believe, depending on the offer that you're selling to the type of client,
Mhm.
follow-ups are important. But if you're talking a high level, self-led, driven client, nah, you don't need a follow-up. I do agree with that. Right. And that's who she
Yeah.
speaks to. I mean, she's making $100,000 months. She doesn't need these people who are like questioning if they should invest in themselves or not. Right.
Yeah.
The people who reach out to her just say, hey, I'm ready. Send me the link. And that's all she does.
I love that.
And so it's almost showing, this is like the showing, okay, yes, like I can have that right in front of my face.
Yeah. It's kind of like that. If they can do it, I can do it. But
Exactly.
I feel like finding the people that are the theys that you want to follow is rare because there's so much noise in the
Oh,
market. So much noise. And I think that's why someone like yourself, like you stand out because like you said, unapologetically yourself. It's like, wait a minute, this person isn't saying the same old advice as everyone else.
yeah,
So it makes it easier to be like, yeah, that person. Let me listen to them.
exactly. Exactly. And I think that's literally the best part of marketing too.
Yeah, one of the things that's been a struggle, I don't say a struggle, but a challenge for me in my business, but also just in my life is like answering that question of who am I?
Ooh.
And like what makes me me versus somebody else them. And I've been following, or I have a poster of this in one of my other rooms of the Ikigai. Do you know
Uh-huh.
that diagram?
Um, it sounds, is it like,
It's like the four-way Venn diagram of like the perfect thing that would be for you to do for money and for work and for passion and
yeah.
everything.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
And part of that is like what you love and like what you're good at, which is who you are. Right. But you also have to get money for it. And the world has to need that thing too. So like finding that as kind of like a North Star has been pretty good. But I love what you said earlier too about finding somebody who can show you who you are, right? Finding a mentor who can show you who you are. One thing that kind of hit me a long time ago is somebody told me, I forget who it was. Might have been in a book I read or one of my therapists in the past. They're like, yeah, your parents' job is to tell you who you are.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of parents obviously just don't, right? Because they don't even know who they are. So we're kind
No.
of like left to figure ourselves out on our own. And I think that's why a lot of us, especially entrepreneurs, right, we struggle through a lot of things. So having that certainty in yourself, and this is what we've been talking about this whole time, really, right? Having that certainty of who you are makes this whole journey a lot easier. And there's another
Yes.
piece you said, which I completely agree with, which is you discovered some of the masculine and feminine stuff as part of your own spiritual journey as well. And I think that the entrepreneurial journey is a spiritual journey.
It
It's just
is.
like disguising it, right? And so, but a lot of people never like actually go in that, like take that path or step into it, lean into it. How has that
Yeah.
helped you? And we've kind of talked about it, but anything else you want to add on how that's helped you grow your business?
I'd say, like, as Tom Bilyeu, he's like the founder of Quest,
Love that
always
guy.
says, like, grow yourself and your business will grow? Well, I think it's kind of what we chatted on around how like when you can heal that internal world, like when you feel so good internally, people feel that energy, right? Everything's energy. And when you're internally
Mm.
doing what you love, when you have this, like, I don't need more, but I know I can just continue to help people and I can get more like as I said, okay, this is just another great example, right? My mentor is making $100,000 months, and I like I'm making what 20 to $30,000 months, great, but like it's the same thing, right? Like we're both in overflow financially. We're both at, but like we both were laughing because I went to go visit her. She lives in Maryland. She's like one of my closest friends too. I went to go
Nice.
visit her. She lives in a 1 bedroom apartment. Look, can we just 1 bedroom apartment? She has a full size bed. Right next to her bed is her little laptop and a standing desk. Nothing else. She doesn't need this luxury. Oh, and she has a Ford. So do I, which was even funnier. Nothing luxurious. This
Yeah.
like silly little like right. And it's like, but how is she making that money? Because she's so internally good. Like she doesn't need material items. She doesn't need to flaunt it. She doesn't need to show it. And I'm the same way. I'm kind of like, I show that I can travel and I can do what I like and I can walk into a store and buy a sweater without looking at the price tag. Like that's great. Those things are awesome. But that didn't come from me being like, I need to get there. It came from me being like, I love what I'm doing every single day. I'm internally feeling so fulfilled with how I'm helping people and supporting people and creating and having fun with it. Like the cost of not doing this is way worse than
Yeah.
all the times that, right? And so I think that that is the definition of like having a spiritual journey is like recognizing like when you start to actually learn to just enjoy every single day and like have gratitude and find these things that almost drive you inward to keep doing what you're doing, like the external will never ever ever affect you ever. Like I could literally lose everything today and I'd still show up on this podcast. I mean, as long as I had a laptop, if I didn't have a
Yeah.
laptop, I'd figure out how to like sell cardboard to like buy one or something. I don't know, but you get the gist,
Great example. Yeah.
right? But
No,
it's
I
like
love
those
that.
moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm not
100%.
doing it. I'm not, and I think that the richest people in the world don't do it for the money. They never went into it for the money.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally
Yeah,
agree.
or the external. Never went into it for a house. They never went into it because they wanted the new pair of shoes. They never went into it because they wanted the car. They went into it because they actually genuinely enjoyed what they were doing every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Agree with all of it. I think
Yeah.
that's the goal. We don't all get there though. Well, I've got one more question for you. Before that, where can people find you?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Arden Schiller, ARDENSHILLER, and then the same with TikTok.
Nice. I'm not on
Simple.
TikTok these days, but I'm sure your TikTok is just as good as your Instagram.
A lot of my Instagram posts are from TikTok too, so it's a vibe.
Nice. So last question, ask this to everybody. So top human stands for triple optimized, being mind, body, and spirit, right? All three parts. Not just the wealth on the outside, not just the killer body, right? But everything. That's just how I see it. What does like optimizing all areas of your life mean to you?
Ooh, I love this question. I think what it truly means to me is not just everything we talked about, right? Like being your authentic full self, right? Where everything's
Mm.
connected, right? But specifically having an inner knowing that you're at peace. Like almost like you're at peace with who you are and the highest version of you. Like there's no need for more. There's no desire to look anywhere else. It's like you're kind of just you're happy, like genuinely happy with exactly where you're at, what's going on. Like everything just is good. And like you almost don't have thoughts around that. Does that make sense?
100, no, for sure. Yeah, I love
Like
that.
it's just an inner knowing. Yeah. Like
And
we're good. You're solid.
and I love what you said too. Is something I just tell people when I in conversation or whatever of like being happy with where you're at now, being good, and still like striving for more. like
Striving
I'm good
satisfied.
now and I'm going to be better in, 10 years or, a year from now.
It's like knowing that every day you're stepping into this best version of you. Yeah.
Thank you, Arden, for that. Really appreciate the conversation. Absolutely love this. Really, I really did. There's only a few people I can think of who are like successful in business and like on their spiritual path. But I think it all comes down to what you just said of like just being happy with who you are, right? And
Yeah.
just being good. And you can lose everything and like you're still good. And you don't
Yeah.
have to show the external things. Like I feel like people like that are so rare. So really
Yeah.
happy to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun.